Hey guys, I'm just gonna wait for everyone to join that's gonna join. Sorry, I'm a little late. I was writing down questions that people had pre-submitted in the DMs. So I'll start answering those now. A lot of those people just can't make it. And so I told them that I would answer their questions so that they could come back and watch this live later. So the first question was, it came in and she was telling me that she had cystic acne breakouts in October of last year. She worked really hard to heal her skin barrier with Sarah at Healthy Skin Glows. She got it under control for the whole year, and then October comes around again, and oh my gosh, she's breaking out again, and really, really badly. So what's happening? And she's asking, like, what's going on? Why do these bad breakouts happen when October comes around? Like, could it be a thing that the season's changing could bring on detoxification? And absolutely. You do with acne, you have to understand it's a detoxification issue sometimes, or sometimes it's slow detoxification, meaning things are slowly coming out of the skin. And a lot of times that's heavy metals that are feeding bacteria in the skin. 9 times out of 10, iron, copper are going to feed bacteria, and then you're going to start to see your skin get really bad because the bacteria that lives in your skin is going to start infecting the pores. So I would look at all your habits. What are you doing around this time that could impair detoxification? Are you doing anything differently? Did you get exposed to anything that you don't normally get exposed to on a monthly or a daily basis? Or have you, like, all of a sudden got a lot less sunlight than you normally do? I would really evaluate your habits and check in. Sometimes people will go through more seasonal detoxes, and a lot of times it has to do with people have heavy metal toxicity. They have lots of metals that maybe move during this time or start to move, and they're going to see that reflected in the skin. So there is a deeper issue there. It's just at this point, it would be all speculation to me. What I would do first is evaluate all habits that are changing. If there's literally nothing that's different, meaning nothing has changed in your routine at all, you haven't got exposed to anything weird, then I would maybe think about testing my heavy metals and my minerals, doing like a hair tissue mineral analysis to make sure that things aren't kind of deep within and they're starting to come out. The second question was, somebody asked me, she's gotten her rosacea under control, but she gets sensitive and itchy skin during her luteal phase. What would drive this? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be histamine issues. If you have estrogen dominance or estrogen excess, you'll a lot of times find that you also have histamine issues, which is kind of like that allergenic, red, itchy hives type protein that's not being detoxified properly. This has a lot to do with the gut bacteria, and it also has a lot to do with just overall detoxification. So make sure you're really supporting the gut. Doing raw carrot salad daily, making sure you're doing gentle fibers, maybe like an apple every single day, making sure that you're having a bowel movement once or twice a day, you're not constipated. So a lot of people think they're not constipated because they're pooping every day, but in reality it's not full, it's not satisfying, it's not moving. Other things that could be driving histamine imbalance is a lack of B vitamins, so B vitamin deficiency. And I know this particular person is in Fully Nourished. So keep in mind, sometimes these things do take time, and you have to replenish nutrients that have been depleted over time. She also had a question regarding belly fat. She said she has polycystic ovarian syndrome. She says she's lean and toned everywhere, but she has belly fat. And first of all, whenever somebody tells me that they have belly fat, I always want to see a picture, and I always want to make sure who they're comparing themselves to. A lot of women think they have belly fat when in reality they just have normal amounts of fat that are supposed to be there. And they're comparing themselves to people on Instagram that don't have periods, don't have cycles, have eating disorders, have anxiety, like that are lean at the cost of their health. health. So I don't want you comparing yourself to other people, first of all. But if you truly have excessive belly fat that's droopy, and I'm talking excessive, I'm not talking about that, extra 5 to 10 pounds you have to lose. You need to come to terms, you may never lose that, because that is what your body deems as safety. Now, a healthier body tends to stay leaner because they feel safer, but that can take years to get your body to a point where it feels safe enough to lose that extra weight. And if you've been yo-yo dieting, restricting, constantly trying to lose belly fat, 9 times out of 10, your body doesn't feel safe. And so a lot of times the thing that needs to happen for us to lose belly fat is to stop trying to lose belly fat, if that makes sense. We got to eat to nourish ourselves, continue to be active, continue to support our metabolism, continue to get ourselves healthier and healthier and healthier. And over time, belly fat kind of takes care of itself, because belly fat is really usually driven by stress hormones. And stress hormones don't start to show themselves overnight. Another question was, always extremely tired, no matter what. She has headaches, but she's always feeling exhausted. She's feeling fully nourished, but she felt exhausted and had headaches before fully nourished. And so she was wondering what it could possibly be. And I would look in, if somebody is extremely tired, I would look into copper toxicity. I would look into viruses. So Epstein-Barr, have you ever had mono, Lyme's disease, co-infections? I'm always looking at those things, because a lot of times it will have to do with mineral imbalances, copper toxicity, iron toxicity, and viruses are playing a role if you're constantly exhausted. And then I'll start answering some questions that are coming in, and then I'll get to the last question that was pre-submitted. What would have caused my AMH to drop from 21 to 5 in a few months, and what does that mean? I was diagnosed with PCOS after stopping birth control and trying to get my period back after a year off the pill. What would have caused your anti-Müllerian hormone to drop from 21 to 5 in a few months? I have no idea. I don't know anything that's going on in your life, so I don't know. But it usually means, and it doesn't have to mean anything. Keep in mind that hormones, you're always looking at hormones in relationship to each other. The goal with hormones is not to look for like the one thing that's wrong, like, oh, my anti-Müllerian hormone is off, so that could be the driver of my issues. No, you're looking at your hormones as a whole picture. What's going on in your body? What's going on in your body right now? Well, you went off birth control, you were on birth control for a while, so you had shut down the cycle, and your body's having a hard time getting back that brain to ovary connection. And so that is the thing we need to focus on. If you're having a hard time getting your period post pill, your goal is to resume ovulating. Stop stressing about all these hormones and just start focusing on what's going to make my body feel safe enough to reproduce and ovulate again. And that's going to be eating enough, eating frequently, getting enough sleep, making sure you're moving your body, making sure you're not over exercising, making sure you're not in a stressful situation, and replenishing the nutrients that were lost while on the pill. All the B vitamins, vitamins A, C, E, zinc, iodine, those types of nutrients. So those are all going to affect your hormones as a whole, and I would focus on those things. Very random, but have you ever heard of or looked into the root cause of misophonia? I've actually never heard of that. I don't know what it is. Jessica, I have a lot of cellulite in the back of my thighs. How can I improve this? It looks really awful. I'm using birch oil and a massager. Thank you. If you have estrogen dominance, you tend to have excessive cellulite. Keep in mind, cellulite has a lot to do with the fascia. So if you haven't heard of a fascia blaster, I highly recommend getting one of those. I also highly recommend getting a body brush and doing body brushing, increasing circulation and moving the lymphatic fluid that's stagnant. If you do a lot of sitting, you gotta move that. Another thing that you would want to look into is estrogen dominance. If you have a ton of estrogen in the body, you're going to store a lot of fat in your hips and your thighs, and it's going to tend to be pretty dimply. And so you don't want excessive estrogen. And so you really want to look at your estrogen and progesterone levels and look at them in relationship to each other. And then how's your detoxification? Is your detoxification pretty poor? A lot of times that's what's going on. People aren't moving really well. They're not sweating a lot. They're not, they're sitting all day long. They're kind of stagnant, and think of it, it's just stagnation kind of sitting there. So fascia blaster, body brushing, making sure you're detoxifying, and look into your hormones. Hi, is it possible to ovulate on day 8? It's possible to ovulate on day 8, but you would have a period probably 11 to 14 days afterwards. Your luteal phases don't usually last more than 14 days. Hi Jess, do you know anything about eye floaters and if there is a way to get rid of them? Is it an internal cause? Everything's an internal cause, guys. Your eyes specifically are very, very sensitive to your health as a whole. Blood sugar balance, hormones totally affect the eyes. So I'm not really sure about eye floaters because, again, I'm never looking at the issue. Whenever somebody tells me I've been diagnosed with this or I have this, I'm like, I don't care. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on with you. And for me, that's what tells the story. The question is always why. The question or the answer never lies in what. The answer always lies in the why. And so regardless of what someone's struggling with, what are the root causes of all issues? Nutrient deficiencies on a fundamental level. Every single cell in your body, meaning all the trillions and trillions of cells that I have making up my organs, don't have what they need to literally function properly. And of course, that's going to cause a domino effect throughout my whole body. So I'm always looking at nutrients and minerals first and foremost and balancing those first. Second thing is nutrition. What is nutrition about? Is nutrition working for people? How's their life? What are they being exposed to in their environment? A lot of people are exposed to mold. They have mold in their walls, mold toxicity. They have had, water leaks, and they don't realize that there's mold growing in their ceiling and their walls, and so they're being exposed to those spores on a daily basis. Or they're not drinking clean, filtered water, which we know is contaminated with so many things. So I'm really looking at the driving factors of what could be causing overall body imbalance. A lot of times these simple little issues like eye floaters or sinus infections or whatever it might be tend to go away once you're actually focusing on the root cause of what the issue is. What can palpitations at night mean every time around ovulation and before period? It could be magnesium deficiency. It could be excessive estrogen, which is a stress hormone. So it could be driving cortisol up. How are your progesterone levels? You always want to look at that in relationship to progesterone. And then how's your blood sugar balance? Are you eating enough? Are you eating before bed to make sure your blood sugar stays stable, throughout the night? A lot of times when our hormones are high or low, we're going to experience more blood sugar imbalances. And so we need to keep in mind that our body does need fuel. And a lot of times our body's telling us like, hey, you need fuel. And some women don't listen to their hunger cues, and so eventually the body speaks to us in other ways. Irritability, moodiness, dizziness, heart palpitations, that type of thing. Hi Jess. Hi Estelle. Is it a good idea to get a mammogram every year? Wondering about radiation from exam. Yeah, I mentioned yesterday about the thermography. I personally wouldn't get a mammogram every year. I can't really give you the advice of no, you shouldn't, or yes, you should. However, I do believe radiation is really, really dangerous, more dangerous than we think it is. And I don't understand why a procedure that's meant to prevent breast cancer is exposing us to something that is known to literally drive cancer. So I personally would not get a mammogram every year, and I would more opt for a thermography or something like that. So that's just my personal opinion. My pulses and pressure have gone up. My temps stay the same. Could this mean I'm stressed or eating FN? I'm getting balanced. It takes time. So you want to see improvements in one or the other if you're not seeing an improvement in both. But temperatures can take a while to get up. However, you kind of want to play around with your habits. Do you need more carbs? Do you need more protein? Do you need to eat before bed? Play around with things and see if anything affects your temperature. It's temperatures and pulses are a really nice tool to have because you can really start to play around with your habits and experiment and see if something is going to affect you positively or negatively. You can tell right away, right? If something is messing with your pulses or your temperature, you know immediately that thing was working for you or not working for you. I also feel nauseous and dizzy since eating a metabolic supportive diet. Any idea of the cause? Again, I'm not really sure the exact specifics of what you're eating. So are you eating enough protein? Are you eating, I don't know what you're eating and I don't know what the diet looks like. So it's hard for me to say what it could be. But if you feel nauseous and dizzy, were you on a very restrictive diet before? That can sometimes be a really hard transition, and if you go too hard too fast, it can be a problem. If you were on a low carb diet and then all of a sudden you switch to eating lots and lots of carbohydrates, that can cause problems. So make sure that you're going very, very slowly and not making changes too quickly. I've been experiencing a lot of flakiness and sebum buildup on my scalp lately. Could that be due to mineral issues, detoxification? Yeah, so we do detoxify through the scalp for sure, but flakiness a lot of times is driven by what's going on in the gut a lot of times, funny enough. So you kind of want to pay attention. Is digestion good, or is digestion kind of feel off as well? But it can be detox. We definitely can detox through our scalp, and it definitely like will show up, and it can sometimes show up in like really oily scalp. Sometimes when we make like dietary changes, I actually saw that a lot of people on Fully Nourished, when they first implemented the strategies, they saw like weird changes. Like they saw their scalp get a little oily, they saw like weird things happen, and then it kind of evened out. It just kind of takes some time, but it's hard for me to know. Like sometimes oily scalp can be hormonal, but sometimes it can also be mineral issues or just detoxification. Can you please talk about calcification? Yeah, calcification, when I say calcification or refer to it, it just means that we have all these little tiny minerals that are like the spark plugs of our body, and calcium tends to be pretty high. We are exposed to a lot of calcium in our environment, and we are really magnesium deficient and iodine deficient, the two minerals that we need to decalcify. Another thing is we need vitamin K in order to allow calcium into the teeth and the bones, and a lot of people are deficient in vitamin K as well. And so here we are, we have calcium starting to build up. It builds up in the tissues, it builds up in the soft tissues, the heart, the arteries. If you've ever heard of tonsil stones or gallstones, that's calcification. And so our goal with calcium is, first we need to know what's going on. If we don't know where our mineral levels are, we have no business trying to decalcify anything, because we don't even know if we have calcification or not. First thing you need to do is test your mineral levels. A hair tissue mineral analysis is a super cheap and easy way to do so. Once you see where your calcium is at, you can implement things to help you push that into the bones and the teeth, like vitamin K. You also need to balance your magnesium levels out. 9 times out of 10 people are deficient. I should say really 10 out of 10 people are deficient. And then you also want to make sure that you're not iodine deficient, because iodine does help the body decalcify. But yeah, calcification, it looks like heart attacks, it looks like tonsil stones, gallstones, kidney stones, just built up of calcium in the small tissues or the soft tissue. I've read 4 articles of Ray Peat. It's mind-blowing. Isn't it? I'm so glad you guys are digging into that slowly. It was life-changing for me because I already understood a lot about hormones, but there were things that were being taught in the industry that just did not make sense to me at all, that no common sense. And so he really pulled all the pieces together for me and gave me a great foundation to just build upon. And yeah, mind-blowing. Many health-related podcast recommendations. I think 9 times out of 10, most podcasts are just a bunch of bull. They really just make you feel like you're not doing enough. A lot of these people are just on the completely wrong track, unfortunately. They're still in a mindset of restriction. They're still in a mindset, they're not looking at the root cause. They're talking about gut issues and hormone issues and all these things, which are important. But again, what's at the root? Why does my gut get unbalanced in the first place? That's my question. Or why do hormones get imbalanced in the first place? That should be the question. And instead they're like, to me, I just don't like a lot of health podcasts, but I have been listening to Mito Life on repeat, because I just love all his I love Matt Blackburn's guests. Hi Jessica, how to know if the vagus nerve is off and vagal tone, how to improve the vagus nerve, should we hold the stomach in or let it out? My mom told me to keep it in. That's so funny that you said that, because my mom told me to keep it in as well. Like, suck it in, Jessica, suck it in. And sucking it in actually destroys your pelvic floor. So it makes, your vaginal tissues less sensitive. It also messes with your vagal tone. But when it comes to vagal tone, it's hard to really know unless you get a test, but a good way to test is just to do the knock on the knee. That is a good sign that vagal tone is good. But ways that you can strengthen your vagal tone are just gargling, singing at the top of your lungs, humming like any type of vibration in the throat stimulates the vagus nerve. Coffee enemas stimulate the vagus nerve. Meditation stimulates the vagus nerve. But a lot of people who are constipated or don't have the urge to go to the bathroom have really poor vagal tone. Also, when people, and I know this might be TMI, but when you have a good bowel movement, it feels really good. Like it almost like is pleasurable. That shows you that you have good vagal tone. If you don't ever get that sensation to go, or it doesn't really feel satisfying to go, then that usually shows you that vagal tone is most likely weak. You say it's a gift to have a high appetite. Can you explain the hormone ghrelin? Can this cause a high appetite? Thank you. And I don't mean like a high appetite where you like are never satisfied, but I just mean to have an appetite. To be hungry is good. Having hunger is an important thing. It shows you that your metabolism is working. When it comes to leptin and ghrelin, I'm not as obsessed about these hormones as other people are. Ghrelin is that hormone that makes your kind of stomach growl and feel empty when you're hungry. And leptin is the hormone that your fat cells release to tell you that there's enough fat in storage, you're satisfied. And so when your leptin and your ghrelin levels are kind of imbalanced, you might feel more hungry than normal or less hungry than normal, or leptin, you'll continue to feel hungry even when you have enough fat in storage. But there's a lot of functional practitioners that focus way too much on these hormones, and the reason why they're imbalanced in the first place is because the body's stressed the hell out. The body is not getting consistent fuel, balanced blood sugar, is super inflamed, doesn't have what it needs nutrient and mineral wise. And so of course hormones are going to be imbalanced. Hormones are cellular signalers. And so your cells are confused. They don't have what they need. And so ghrelin is just the hormone that's going to, make you feel hungry and kind of give you that like stomach growling sensation. It's secreted by the stomach. But I wouldn't say like that's, ghrelin is a gift. It's more just like having an appetite is a gift, and having your body tell you when it needs fuel is a gift. And we want to get our bodies to a point where there's no cellular confusion. It's just the body tells you when it needs fuel and tells you what it needs as well. And what ox bile do you recommend? Any supplement that contains bitter and ox bile and so on. There is a supplement called Bile Builder. I forget the maker. Sorry, I'm spacing on it again. But it has some taurine. It has ox bile. It's a really good blend. But usually for ox bile, I just use Nutricology if it's just straight ox bile. But Bile Builder is one I tend to use a lot. Hi, Jessica. How would you know to take care of the stomach flu? What kind of food would you eat? And do you think activated charcoal would help? I would just eat foods that sound good to me. Lots of fluids, lots of minerals, especially if you have like diarrhea or you're throwing up, you're losing a lot of electrolytes. So I would make sure I was replenishing those. I would probably do like some type of chicken soup that's bone broth based. And I would take activated charcoal every single day. And then I would just let my body do its thing. When you have a virus, the body, you can't kill viruses, and so it's just one of those things where you have to just kind of let the body do its thing and the immune system work. And sometimes that's going to look like sleeping more. That's going to maybe look like taking a hot bath and just letting yourself sweat. Whatever kind of feels good is good. But I personally don't stress about the flu. Like I'm just like, my immune system's just getting stronger. And a lot of times we get the flu when we're overworked, we're super busy, we're not taking as good of care of ourselves, we haven't gotten a lot of sunlight, that kind of thing. And so usually it just takes some tender love and care and some extra nutrients and minerals. But I wouldn't super stress about it. But activated charcoal tends to do a lot of good when it comes to the flu. 3 weeks ago, I was told that I had Hashimoto's because my levels were way off. 3 weeks later, my TSH and T4 came back much better. I changed your advice on eating. Does this mean I'm okay now, or does the problem linger? Have you gotten your T3 tested, your free T3, your reverse T3, your TPO antibodies? I mean, there's more to thyroid health than just your TSH and T4. So that would be my question, is what are your other hormones like? And if you have a tendency to have Hashimoto's, there's most likely some further issues going on. That's, again, why I hate focusing on the diagnosis and always focusing on the why. A lot of people are so focused on the what that they forget to focus on the why. Could I ask where you got your backdrop? I love it. I got it on Etsy, actually, and I can't remember the brand. They make like tons and tons of different backdrops, and they will screen print them for you. Super easy to work with as well. They have like thousands and thousands of designs. How often to use bitters? I took them today and yesterday before breakfast. It kind of just depends. You don't want to use them long term. They're herbs, so they do need to be taken a break from. So I would, I usually just take a bottle and I probably use them before at least 2 or 3 meals, and then just finish up the bottle, give myself a break, and then get back to it. Any tips for detoxing for cystic acne? Yeah, it takes time, and it definitely is something that needs to be dug a little deeper into for a lot of people. Now, yeah, of course, there are those like miraculous stories where it's like, oh my god, I changed my diet and I took this supplement and like it healed my cystic acne. Most likely, if it's been happening for years and years and years, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. There's something going on that's really making detoxification fairly slow. And so what I do with someone who has cystic acne is I'm going to run a hair tissue mineral analysis, and sometimes if there's digestive issues, I'm going to run a GI map. I also would love to run a Dutch test if possible, just because it's like, to get the whole picture is the best way to go about it. But at least a hair tissue mineral analysis, because you can start to balance minerals, which is going to balance your oxidation or your metabolic rate, and that's going to allow your body to actually start moving metals and detoxifying. Now, during detox, that can take, anywhere from 6 months to a year to get minerals balanced. However, during detox, skin can temporarily get worse, but it's almost like a purge. The body's finally like letting the floodgates open. A lot of times what's happening in cystic acne is their body is in such a depleted state that their body is fighting detoxification. And so detoxification is so incredibly slow. And so this is why the problem just lingers and lingers and lingers and pops up sometimes and goes back down. And so it needs to just be dealt with, almost like draining a boil in a sense, like get these floodgates open and let's get this junk moving. But biggest thing, you need magnesium, you need B vitamins. Coffee enemas and castor oil packs are really, really helpful. I'm trying to think of what else. Making sure you're eating a raw carrot salad every day, or at least eating a raw carrot every single day. Making sure you're balancing your blood sugar, eating enough, sleeping well, and exercising, like making sure you're getting in a sweat in pretty much daily. But yeah, those are just kind of the basics. You just want to basically support your body, because I know we are like trained as consumers to think like a detox is separate than what our body does. Your body takes care of detoxification. Your job is just to support your body and support detoxification pathways. Detox is not something you do. Detox is something you are. And so you want to make sure that you're giving your body everything it needs to detoxify as optimally as possible and as quickly and efficiently as possible. I'm pretty sure my school put me in an apartment with mold. Haven't felt like myself since I've moved here and have had headaches every day. Do you know what other symptoms are associated with mold? Fatigue, it can be anything. It can be digestive issues, rashes, eczema, psoriasis, autoimmune conditions, chronic fatigue syndrome, depression, hallucinations. A lot of people that are think that things are haunted. In reality, you start to actually hallucinate where the mold is, because the body is rejecting it. I'm trying to think of what else. Just overall feelings of like malaise and just not feeling very good. But yeah, plenty of different symptoms. Constantly running nose, sinus infections, having a low immune system. So just pretty much if you don't feel good and you visually see that it comes from the place that you're at, 9 times out of 10 mold. And then another way that you can kind of tell is when you leave that place for a couple of days, how do you feel? Do you feel better when you leave? If that's the case, then a lot of times that does point to mold. I want to do a detox bath. What would you recommend? I put it in any specific Epsom salt brand that you like, and how often would you recommend them? As often as you want. They can be depleting. Some people are really toxic, and like even just sitting in a bath for like 30 minutes is like too much for them. But a good detox bath is going to be like 2 to 4 cups of Epsom salts, 2 cups of Dead Sea salt. Epsom salt, the brand doesn't matter. I think I just buy like a big bag wherever I'm at. Like if I'm at Target, I just buy Target. If I'm at Costco, I just buy Costco. And then Dead Sea salt, I do order off of Amazon. It's just called Dead Sea salt. It's like in a Epsom salt type bag. Or you can do baking soda as well, like 2 cups of Dead Sea salt or 2 cups of baking soda. And then if you want Dr. Shinga's mustard bath on Amazon, it's like a little blue tin container. Oh my gosh, if you want to sweat, just use 2 scoops of Dr. Shinga's. So I like that if you really like want a good sweat. But once or twice a week is plenty unless you like to take more baths. But I know they can be kind of drying to the skin, so you don't want to overdo it and feel like you're like a walking Sahara Desert. What is the kind of magnesium to supplement? I think you might have mentioned it past IG Lives, but I forget the name. Magnesium bicarbonate, magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate are all good forms of magnesium to supplement internally. Thoughts on zinc supplementation? I've seen a lot of women trying to conceive supplementing with it, but I'm drawing a blank on your stance. I don't recommend supplementing zinc unless you know you need zinc, because it can cause harm as well. Not harm in the sense of like, oh my gosh, like I, damaged myself, but more like, why am I starting to see these symptoms, or why is something getting worse and not better? And it's because zinc is doing something in the body that you're not understanding like what it is, because you've never tested and you don't know if you need it. What does it mean when I continuously pop whole food bits and have warm sensations in the stomach area? I hope you're well. Oh, continuously poop whole food bits. What are you pooping? Pay attention, because if you're seeing undigested food in your stool, you probably have low stomach acid, and you're not breaking your food down fully in the stomach. But that could be a lot of things. It could be H. pylori. It could be small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, SIBO. Are you like constantly super bloated as well? Like so many questions. So to get to the bottom of gut issues as quickly and efficiently as possible, I just recommend a GI map just to get it done with. But to speculate, I would say it sounds like low stomach acid or SIBO. Do you have a favorite brand of activated charcoal? Yeah, I use Solar Ray. I use their coconut charcoal, and I use the powder because I like to take big doses. I don't like to like take the capsules, because I take like tablespoon to 3 tablespoon size doses. Like when I take activated charcoal, I'm like taking a whole spoon and putting it in my water. So I like to buy the powder. But yeah, I usually use the Solar Ray coconut charcoal that I get at my local health food store. What about other kinds of acne? Not necessarily cystic. I'm 25. It gets worse as I get older. Is it the same advice as cystic? Same advice as cystic. Different acnes doesn't necessarily mean it has different driving factors. It just means it's deeper in the skin layers. But when it comes to acne, I always like to look a little bit deeper. Like, is it getting worse cyclically? Meaning that I know you have, quote unquote, I have acne, but I want to know the patterns. Is it growing onto your forehead during your luteal phase? Is it growing onto your cheeks during your period? Where is it? Is it on your chin and your cheeks and your neck? Is it on your forehead? Is it on your temples? Your scalp? Where is it? Because all of those things matter. Skin mapping is super accurate, and so is making sure that you're tracking how your acne changes throughout your cycle, because 9 times out of 10 hormones are driving it, and if it's getting worse during ovulation or the luteal phase, you're seeing that the liver is super burdened during that time with hormones, and so it is making detoxification worse. But yeah, most acne is driven by poor detoxification or sluggish detoxification that needs to be dealt with, or inflammation in the body. But a lot of people that have acne are already eating really well. And so it's like, that's not it, because you couldn't eat any cleaner, right? You're like, I'm eating so clean, what's going on? So you want to make sure your water's filtered. That's a must, like must. You don't want to be exposed to constant heavy metal contaminants and pharmaceuticals and fluorides and things like that. And then if that doesn't fix the issue, then digging deeper into the minerals is important. What are your thoughts on MTHFR? It's kind of puzzling to me because I feel like it's a fairly new diagnosis in the medical community. Do you think it's linked to the V word? I think it's a bunch of bullocks, honestly. Genetics is such an industry, you guys, and I just want you guys to like step back and see the bigger picture. When they implemented genetics, I don't know if you guys remember the Times article that came out, I think it was like 2003 or so, and it was said, epigenetics, the cure to all diseases, right? It was like, oh my gosh, we're going to get our genes tested. We did the complete gene mapping, and we're going to cure everything. We're going to cure cancer. We're going to cure it all. Like, it's just going to be all cured. Here we are 15 years later, and we have a self-driving car, but genetics has gotten us nowhere because we already know that genes don't matter that much. We already know that. We know it in our head, and yet we continue to sell our gene information to big data companies that sell your information to God knows who. And so I do not trust, I will never get a genetic test ever because I do not want my information sold. Who knows who's buying that? They're allowed to sell it to whoever, the highest bidder. And second of all, what is it helping? To know you have MTHFR, you already know you have poor detoxification from your symptoms. So what are you going to do about it? A lot of people are like, oh, I have this gene, and it's like, oh my gosh, it makes me sluggish detox. And I'm like, who cares? What are you going to do about it? Like, what's done is done. So I do believe that, a lot of people have sluggish detoxification from the V word and a lot of other, we have a slew of things just being thrown at us in our culture, but there's a lot worse things that are happening. We're exposed to genetically modified foods, we're exposed to glyphosate, lots of pesticides, God knows what they're spraying in the air. We could just go down the line. Our body is being bombarded with stressors. They say that we are exposed to more stress in a day than our grandparents were exposed to in their lifetime. And that's so true. And so I think a lot of people that I've worked with that have MTHFR, they are not feeding themselves well. They're not eating enough sugar or carbohydrate. They're not eating enough animal proteins. Like, their basic needs for detoxification are not being met. And then on top of it, they're also restrictive. They're not getting a lot of nutrients. They're eating tons and tons of like cruciferous vegetables and leafy greens and just a bunch of foods that are not biologically appropriate, on top of the fact that they're expecting their bodies to be really good detoxifiers. And I'm like, we first got to just give our body the basic needs, like the basic nutrients. Also, this idea that like being a slow methylator is like the worst thing in the world. You don't want to be too slow of a methylator, but you also don't want to be too fast of a methylator. That's a whole nother issue. So I think methylation is just kind of something for functional practitioners to just kind of start to say like, we don't know what to say, so we're just going to say this person has a genetic mutation because they're, prescribing low sugar, low dairy, low protein, no animal food diets. I'm like, what do you expect? These people are starving. Their bodies are literally eating themselves alive, and detoxification is on the back burner. So I think what drives disease and poor detoxification is mostly stress, and MTHFR is just the fall guy. And again, that's just me, but I'm uber unimpressed with genetics. I think genetics are just such a rabbit hole of just baloney, and I wouldn't even waste my time on it. Hi Jess, staying in my classroom on my lunch to watch your live. I love you, Amber. Is ginger tea good for cramps? Yeah, so ginger is in particular is super anti-inflammatory, and taking powdered organic ginger and making a tea out of it is even better. So yeah, super good for cramps, but like sometimes when you have really bad cramps, it needs to be like ginger to the point of like you can barely stand it. It's so spicy kind of ginger, just because you need a lot to really make a difference. How do you feel about organic maca powder in smoothies? How's the maca prepared? Is it raw maca? It's out because that's a cruciferous vegetable that's going to destroy the thyroid. But if it's gelatinized, it can be a pretty good option, depending on if someone needs it. You know what I mean? It's like some people don't really need maca, but again, like some people do need the nutrients of maca. Is it bad to take turmeric every day? I wouldn't say it's bad or good. It is super anti-inflammatory, but I'm not like overly impressed with it. It's not going to heal your inflammation if there's other issues at play, but it can be a really good support. Okay, can you guys give me 1 second? I'm just letting the dog in real quick because he's going to just cry and cry. Come here, you want to come in? my studio's in my guest room, and so my studio's in my guest room, so I am like hiding away from the dogs, and he's like, nope, I want to sit on the guest bed while you record. Okay, do you have any other recommendations for water pitchers? I have the Aqua one, but I read the water tested the same as tap water. Also, is there any reason to get filter shower water? Matt Blackburn gets me in my head. Matt Blackburn is, he's fun to watch, but he's extreme for sure. So I would filter my shower water more than I would even worry about filtering my bath water. Obviously, it's good to filter all the water you're exposed to, but shower in particular, because there's steam involved. Keep in mind, you're gonna have to understand chemistry to understand what happens with shower water, but if you have contaminants like chlorine coming in through your shower head, steam is created, right? And this turns chlorine into something called chloramine. Chloramine is way more dangerous than chlorine. And when you breathe it in, it's absorbed very, very well. And so I do recommend a shower filter. I use a shower filter. I just think they're a good idea. They're not like the first thing you should invest in, but they are technically something you want to invest in at some point. And then I don't really like water pitchers because they can only do so much, guys. I think we have to understand we're not gonna have our cake and eat it too. If you want a pitcher-sized filter, you're gonna get the performance of a pitcher-sized filter. If you look at a reverse osmosis filter, it has 4 separate filters in this big bladder that it goes through for a reason. It is a filtration system. So you're only going to get so much filtration in a pitcher. And I did say that, the AquaGear pitcher is good enough, but it's not anywhere near some type of higher duty filter, just because it's size, really. I mean, you can't have everything, Hey Jessica, hey Sam. I know you don't experience the standard PMS symptoms. Does that go for emotional symptoms too? Do you not feel sad or angry or experience mood swings around your period? Not really. I mean, there are times, don't get me wrong, guys, I'm not perfect, and I definitely don't have perfect health. But most of the time my periods are pretty asymptomatic. But I would say the day before, my boyfriend's okay, what's going on? I'm just a little shorter. I'm just a little not so, I don't deal with bullshit. I have a low tolerance down here as opposed to my normal maybe up here. So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, of course, I experience the change of emotions. Keep in mind, the shift of emotions is normal for your cycle. You're going to have different emotions for each phase of your cycle. However, it should not be life-altering or life-changing. You should still be able to function, and it shouldn't be a week of just wow, the devil version of Jessica is now arisen, So I don't really experience feeling super angry or really bad mood swings. Yeah, I feel a little more low, a little less tolerance for all things BS, but I'm not it doesn't last for a week and a half or anything like that. I did ovulate yesterday, and on my ovulation, I do want to just kind of be left alone. I just kind of want to, and I'm not angry or irritable. I just kind of want to recluse. I usually will just clear my schedule for a couple hours so I can read a book and just kind of let myself have a day. And today I feel so refreshed and I feel a lot better. So that's just normal for me. If your periods are normal, to the day, does that usually mean ovulation is okay? Yeah, it totally does, for the most part. Yeah, I wouldn't stress about it, really. Can you speak more about the need for sugar and liver detox, sugar for proper liver detox? Yeah, sugar and carbohydrate are absolutely necessary for the liver. Keep in mind, the liver is like the battery pack of the body. One of its primary functions is to actually keep blood sugar stable. And the way that it does that is by storing up about 150 grams of glycogen, which is stored sugar, in order to be able to release slowly. So as your cells uptake glucose from the bloodstream, your liver slowly secretes sugar into the bloodstream that it had stored up. What a lot of people don't realize is that glycogen is stored in both the muscles and the liver. So this is very true for a lot of people that go on low carb or keto diets. They feel amazing for the first couple months because their liver is still pretty much stored up as much glycogen as possible, but slowly it gets depleted and depleted and depleted until the liver has really very little sugar to store. And so there's not enough to keep blood sugar levels stable. And so the body actually has to start eating its own muscle or eating its own fat in order to stay alive. And so when we want our liver functioning optimally, We want our liver to be storing up sugar. Yeah, of course, a lot of people in like the low carb or keto community will say, oh, your liver will make its own sugar. Your body can make its own carbs. And I'm like, yes, that is true. However, what needs to happen for that to happen? Cortisol needs to spike. Adrenaline needs to spike. Your muscles have to be broken down and sent to the liver, which will then turn them into sugar. That's not a good thing. When you start to sacrifice muscle in order to fuel your brain cells, there's a problem there. And so when it comes to the liver, it functions optimally when it's full of sugar, when it has that 150 grams of glycogen to kind of keep in storage at all times. This takes sometimes months to return, especially if you've gone on a very low carb, low sugar diet for a long time. You have adrenal fatigue, or you're fatigued, you have low blood sugar, you have imbalanced blood sugar, you've done intermittent fasting for a long time. All of those things deplete sugar from the liver, and it can take months and months for the blood sugar to get stable enough to even start storing sugar in the liver. For a while, the body will just utilize that sugar because it needs it so badly. And so the goal is to eventually create an abundance to the point where the liver will store sugar again. But yeah, the liver needs about 150 grams of glycogen or glucose at all times to function, which is quite a bit. Like, that's quite a bit of sugar on top of what your cells need. So when you're trying to detoxify and you're on a low sugar, low carb diet, they're not synonymous. Like, that's going to be a struggle for real. Like, I almost sometimes think, like, when somebody tells me, like, yeah, I'm on keto and I'm detoxifying, and I'm like, that's funny. It's not working. It's not happening. Or, like, I see functional medicine doctors put clients on these, like, really restrictive diets that are, like, no soy, no dairy, no gluten, no grains, no beans, no this. I'm like, what are you even eating? Like, your body's like, help me. So overall, you need a lot of protein, about 100 grams of protein, of bioavailable animal protein per day to detoxify, and about 150 grams of sugar, at least. That's just for your liver, not to mention what your cells need. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Oh, you're welcome. Is gluten a problem for everyone? I don't want to say gluten is a problem for everyone, because gluten is really not the problem. It's the glyphosate, first of all, so like the actual pesticides that are used to grow the wheat. So a lot of people do better on organic wheat. However, wheat in itself has been hybridized. Keep in mind, when you splice or hybridize grains, they were taking grass and splicing it with a grain, which is wheat. So they've turned wheat into now a wheat grass. That's a hybridized version to be more resilient to famine, more resilient to pesticides, okay, whatever. But also, you're not a cow and you can't digest grass. So they've kind of turned wheat into this thing that's very difficult for the body to digest, and it doesn't have the same amount of chromosomes that it started with. So wheat is usually a problem for most people but people with healthy bodies can tend to digest it pretty well, but I wouldn't be going wheat for everyone, wheat for you, and wheat for you. Like, I just mostly recommend sticking to heirloom grains, which still technically have gluten, for example, like spelt, or if you like to do wheat, doing like einkorn flour, which is wheat, but it's non-hybridized wheat. It's the only wheat that has never been messed with by human beings. 100% agree that practitioners don't even know what to do with anything genetic related. It feels like BS, and their recommendations always consist of something restrictive in lifestyle nutrition. Yeah. Any insight on why my cycle has improved almost instantly on FN? Limited cramps, breast pain, so awesome, but everything else is a bit slower, which is okay. Just wondering why my periods are so good. Because you're detoxing well, you're moving hormones well, and you're creating hormones well. That's like the first step in the right direction, and that shows me that your body is improving. I know the metabolism is a little slower to heal. Other symptoms are slower to heal because they've taken a long time to develop. And so think of it as I always like to think of like a stack of dominoes that have all fallen. You have to slowly pick up the dominoes one by one by one by one, and it's kind of messy, right? You got to move the dominoes that fell on top of the domino out of the way. It takes a while to stack dominoes back up, and think of it that way. But usually the cycles are struggling because the body is undernourished. A lot of women are just undernourishing themselves, and they need those nutrients. And the female body is really interesting. I know we compare ourselves a lot to these Instagram models, and we look at super lean people, which that's not me. I'm not super lean. Super lean people, or women who are ripped or have these awesome booties and small waists, and we're like, oh my gosh, that's the perfect healthy body. And the body's like, no, that's not, because we don't know what's going on with these girls. But 9 times out of 10, like, there's been so many times when a girl that is like a bodybuilder or somebody on Instagram that's like, you know, Insta famous, and they come to me and they're like, yeah, I don't have my period, I have severe anxiety, I have panic attacks, like I haven't ovulated in like 3 years, I've never had a regular period. Like, they just go down the list of like all the things they're struggling with. They're like, I'm not sleeping, like, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So what we relate to health in our head is very different than what our body thinks health is. And a lot of times a truly healthy female body is a little bit more voluptuous, stores a little bit more fat, because fat equals safety. And that's pretty much what the body thinks. Now, of course, over time, as the body feels safer and safer, it begins to tap into fat stores, because it feels like, why do I need to store things for later? But for a while there, it will just kind of hang on to things. So, but yeah, I mean, periods are the first thing to usually change. Sometimes it can take like 3 months to really see changes in the cycle, but they will start to change for sure. My periods have come every 3 weeks. Should that be a sign that something is off balance? Yeah, I mean, 21 days is pretty pushing it. Yeah, 21 days, I mean, that's technically normal, but I would make sure you're ovulating and make sure your thyroid's good. When you talk about sugars, are you talking about natural sugars like honey and fruit? Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about like honey, fruit, all carbohydrates turn into sugars, you guys. Every single sugar, including refined table sugar, breaks down into its individual components. Sucrose is 1 glucose and 1 fructose molecule. Fruit is made of mostly fructose. Honey is mostly fructose. Maple syrup is glucose and fructose. So, you know, when we start to like say there's healthy sugars and there's not healthy sugars, we're really like, it's a big amount of baloney. Now, keep in mind, sugar does stimulate the metabolism. It speeds everything up. And if you eat something like refined sugar, that's white, right? All the minerals have been taken away from that sugar. You are running that risk of speeding up your metabolism and not giving it the fuel or the nutrients to support that, which can cause a stress response. So implementing sugar into the diet also requires lots and lots of nutrients, vitamins A, D, E, K, B vitamins, minerals like zinc and selenium and chromium and sodium and potassium. All of those things are required for a truly healthy metabolism. And somebody that has an abundance of nutrients and minerals can handle refined sugar no problem. Somebody that is in a very depleted state can't handle regular white sugar that provides no nutrients with it. So they need something more like maple syrup or honey or coconut sugar. But when I say sugar, I'm talking all sugar, you guys. I'm not talking about baked goods that have canola oil and additives. That is not sugar. That's a big pile of junk. I'm talking about sugar, and mostly when I talk about sugar, I'm talking about sugar with nutrients, like you said, fruit and honey. But I do quite a bit of refined sugar as well. I'm not gonna lie. What's your favorite low-fat protein? My favorite low-fat protein right now, I'm kind of obsessed with scallops, and I'm kind of obsessed with fish, like white fish. But I go through phases. Like there have been times when I'm like super into chicken, and I like to do like a rotisserie chicken because it just tastes better to me. But right now I'm all about the scallops and the white fish. Back to the genetics thing, so funny because most doctors are like, oh, you have bad acne? That's genetics. Nothing you can do. Blaming it on genetic is the easiest answer. Yeah, right? Because they don't have to like dig deeper. They're just like, oh, it's your bad genetics. And I'm like, not good enough for me. How do you get vitamin K? Are you talking about vitamin K2? Yeah, vitamin K2. You get it from greens mostly. If you can digest and absorb them well, but you mostly make vitamin K via your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria make vitamin K for you. So you really need to have optimal gut function to make enough vitamin K, and I would say 9 times out of 10 women, especially women with PCOS, don't have that, and so I just recommend supplementing it. But you can make like vitamin K broths out of like greens. You make a broth with lots and lots of greens and then strain the greens off and drink the broth. You can get vitamin K from things like grass-fed butter, liver, those like really nutrient-dense foods as well, but sometimes supplementing it is good. What's your daily carbs like? I'm just nosy. Right now, I'm not like tracking super closely, but it's probably gonna look like I wake up, I drink a big glass of juice because I just want to. It's usually gonna be apple juice or orange juice. Sometimes it's grape juice, but I'm kind of sick of grape juice right now. And then I'll have a big bowl of fruit, like watermelon or something. I kind of like to split my carbs and my protein for my breakfast up for whatever reason. I just like something light really quickly in the morning, and it's easy for me to just like go grab some fruit really quick or go grab some juice really quick. And then I can go about my day for a little while. And then I will eat my breakfast, which is usually like 2 hard-boiled eggs or 2 eggs or like scrambled or fried eggs or some type of eggs because I just love eggs. And sometimes I'll add like some collagen to my coffee and I'll have my coffee then. So that would be my whole breakfast is like fruit or fruit juice and eggs and coffee. And then I'll put like some maple syrup in my coffee. And then like mid-morning I'll do usually like a piece of fruit and some cheese, and that's usually before I go work out. And then when I come home, I will drink some chocolate milk with some collagen in it as like a post-workout really quickly. And then I'll have like some kind of like fish and sweet potatoes or something like an hour or 2 later. Like just some kind of protein and carbohydrate. And usually when I do starches like sweet potato or potato, I do have some fructose as well. So some type of fruit juice or some type of fruit. And then at dinner, same thing. I'll usually do, like last night I did like fajitas. So it was like sauteed bell peppers and onions with chicken on organic corn tortillas. And then I probably drink a little bit of juice like an hour or 2 after my meal. So that's pretty much what it looks like. I would say it's probably like around 150 to 200 grams of carbohydrate per day for the most part. But I'm also getting like 120 grams of protein at least. By the way, girl, get this. I had my first 28-day period for the first time ever in my life. It used to be every 21 days. Thank you, thank you, thank you. FN is fire. Yes, I love hearing this, you guys, because sometimes I'm like, I hope FN is working for you guys, but every time I hear we got another regular period in the building, I'm just like, hallelujah! Any insights on glutathione? I hear amazing things about it. How do we naturally get glutathione? We make glutathione and we need selenium to make glutathione. So a lot of people who are deficient in selenium don't make enough glutathione, or people who are deficient in vitamin C as well. So vitamin C is needed to make glutathione, and so is selenium. But I really don't worry about glutathione. The body makes its own. I just do coffee enemas. I make sure I get enough vitamin C, and I make sure that I have good selenium levels. It's the master antioxidant of the body, and everyone like overhypes it. And some people are like, you need to take liposomal glutathione, and just kind of, it's like you don't really need to supplement it. Just support your body, and your body will make its own. So interesting. I was low carb for so long and felt like crap. Thanks, you've incorporated a lot more fruits and roots, and I finally feel like a normal human again. I know, it's crazy, right? What kind of tape should we use to tape our mouth at night? Just like some regular medical tape that's not going to obviously like feel like duct tape when you rip it off, or you can use something that's specifically made for mouth taping like Somnifix, which I really like. Other ways to induce a period if I can't use Vitex and progesterone doesn't work for me. Start to evaluate your habits. Are you eating enough? Eat way more. If you are exercising, stop over exercising. I mean, I don't really know what your habits are. Are you sleeping really well? That's something that needs to be implemented. Sometimes Dong Quai can help, like those other kind of hormonal supportive herbs. But yeah, this is where you start to really play with fire. There's something going on that's making the body feel really stressed out. So I would look into mineral levels as well, like sodium, potassium, that type of thing. I'm not insulin resistant. I don't have diabetes as far as I've been told, but I was prescribed 500 milligrams of metformin from my OBGYN. She said to help regulate my periods and help me lose weight. Yeah, I mean, that's usually the thing that they prescribe because they don't know what else to do. I love so much what you had to say and appreciate the insight. Where did you study and what are your credentials, if you don't mind me asking? Where did I study? So I've studied, I went to the Natural Healing Institute for my clinical nutrition training. I went to IIN for my health coaching. I also went to functional diagnostic nutrition for my FDNP. And then what else did I do? Oh, I've been a certified personal trainer for like over 6 years, I want to say. So I've done quite a bit. And then I've probably spent, I'd say about 10,000 hours of continuing education. Like, I love to learn, and so I'm constantly taking like new classes, new courses. I probably invested into like at least $50,000 into continuing education, and I spend about 20 hours a week studying. When is the best to join Fully Nourished? Labs are scheduled next week. Only been off the pill 2 weeks, but so overwhelmed on where to start. Feel lost at the grocery store. Yeah, just start small. Start with one thing. So when is the best to join Fully Nourished? Wait till November, guys, because it's going to be discounted. I'm going to do a little promotion for November. But yeah, Fully Nourished is whenever you feel like you're ready. I just got MitoLife Poo for Protect. It's in milligrams. I know you can't recommend, but what is a recent dose? I think just 1 pill, 2 pills. What does it say on the suggested label? That's what I would take, like 1 or 2 of the suggested labels. Okay, guys, so Instagram's cutting me off in 10 seconds, so I'm going to end this, and then if I didn't get to your questions, just ask it again. I'm going to go live again for another 30.